my songs I sing for you.
As we've been looking at stories of joy in the face of hard times, I think we can understand that it's one thing when you're the one going through the hard time, but it can be even tougher when you're watching a loved one go through a hard time. And I think the parents in the room would especially agree that when it's your child that's going through something scary, that can be especially tough. And so this morning, I want to introduce you to my friend Amber, and she is going to tell you about how God used a scary situation with her child to show her how she can still have joy. So Amber, tell us a little bit about that scary situation.
So when my son was 9 months old, he had surgery to put tubes in his ears, and we realized he was kind of bleeding longer than he should. And long story short, went to the doctor, did a bunch of tests, and realized that he actually has a genetic bleeding disorder called hemophilia, something he'll have his whole life, and it's something that I unknowingly passed to him.
And so with this disorder, it meant that he was going to have a really major, really scary, risky surgery. And I know that that was a big turning point for you. Tell us about that.
So when Caden was 2 years old, I'm a nurse, and part of his treatment plan is he has to get IV medicine at home, and we had been poking this poor kid over and over and over again, and nobody could get his veins, so we decided with the doctors that he would need a portacath. It's a major surgery, and the night before he was going into surgery, I had a conversation with God, and I remember telling him that, one, keep my son safe, please, and two, if you take him from me, I'm done with you. So I believed he was there. I believed he was listening, but I felt like I needed to just tell him how serious I was, that I needed my son to survive this surgery. He pulled through the surgery fine, and then after I kind of realized that if I had a real relationship with God, I wouldn't have given him an ultimatum. You know, I would have asked and trusted him to take care of us. And so I talked to my husband, we talked to our pastor at the time, and I realized that even though I had been baptized as a teenager, I actually was not saved. I didn't have a relationship with God. So I got baptized and stepped over that line of faith and kind of started a new journey and walk with God in this storm with my son.
I love how you differentiate between knowing about God and knowing God and having a relationship with Him. And there's another part of your story that shows just how relational God is to us. Tell us about that.
So in third grade, Caden ended up in the hospital, which happens sometimes with hemophilia, and he was going through the worst pain I had ever seen a child be in. He was crying out to God. He could not get comfortable, and it was so intense that we had to take turns in the hospital room sitting with him. And my husband let me go home to, just relax for a little bit and just kind of regroup. And I remember just sinking down to the floor in our kitchen and crying out to God and saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't watch my baby cry, and beg Him to heal him. And he wasn't getting healing at the time. And I remember so clearly, God spoke to me and He said, I know what it's like to watch your son suffer. And even though it hurt, but I just knew that my God, our God, knows exactly what I'm going through at this very moment. And it gave me so much comfort and strength to be able to face that and go back to the hospital and be with him.
I love that part of your story. A common thread that seems to be running through these stories of joy is the way God uses those hard times even to encourage others. And Amber actually got to share with her son how God was using him. So tell us that piece.
So now Caden's 12, and he's getting to that point where he really understands how big of an issue this can be sometimes. And a lot of times he asks me, why did God give me hemophilia? And I'm like, okay, God's not Oprah. He's not passing out, disorders to people. And, it's just something that happens. And it's unfortunate, and it's not fun, but it is part of our walk. And I felt like it was time to tell Caden that because of what he's gone through, that it led me to be saved. And what that means is that I will see him in heaven. And if nothing else ever comes good of it, that he knows that his mom will meet him on that day, and I will be with God.
I I love how you got to share with him the importance of living your life with eternal purpose. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Amber.